Silent Hill fans have been put through the ringer over the years. At one time, the franchise that debuted in 1999 was on top of the gaming world, being heralded as a fresh, innovative, and expertly crafted take on the survival horror genre. Indeed, Silent Hill 2 is still often regarded as the very best horror game ever made. But then, starting with 2004's Silent Hill 4, The Room, things slowly began to slide downhill. The Room wasn't a bad game by any means, but its graphics and overall game design felt just slightly off compared to previous entries. Each subsequent game seemed to be just a step below the other, with Silent Hill Origins, Homecoming, Shattered Memories, Downpour, and today's topic, Book of Memories, seemingly marching the franchise to its grave. And need we even mention the horrific For All the Wrong Reasons HD collection, which is one of, if not the worst, HD remaster in gaming history. 2012 brought a sudden gift to horror enthusiasts as Hideo Kojima, acclaimed video game designer and creator of the Metal Gear franchise, declared that his next game would be the newest entry in the Silent Hill saga. Coming along for the ride was horror master Guillermo del Toro and The Walking Dead's breakout star Norman Reedus, which drummed up even more excitement for the upcoming title. In 2014, a concept demo for Kojima's Silent Hill game was released on the PlayStation 4 store. PT was beyond chilling, and its graphics, its story, and its simple gameplay immediately hooked gamers the world over. The short, playable teaser was a phenomenon, and it surprisingly became one of the most influential horror experiences in all of gaming. That all came crashing down, of course, when Kojima and publisher Konami had a very bitter and very public falling out. Kojima would take his talents and establish his own studio, and along with the aforementioned Del Toro and Reedus, created the game Death Stranding. PT would quietly be removed from the PlayStation storefront, and hasn't officially been available since. Silent Hill fans were understandably devastated. The once beloved franchise had taken blow after blow, and after the PT debacle, it was on life support for a near decade. By now we all know this didn't last. Silent Hill made its grand return in 2023 with a lengthy showcase announcing not one, not two, but 5 Silent Hill gaming projects in the works, along with another feature-length film and tons of merchandise. Although the first new game to release, Silent Hill Ascension, was another massive flop, the free-to-play The Short Message felt at least like a return to form. The remake to Silent Hill 2, though, was a godsend, somehow surpassing all expectations and becoming perhaps the greatest game in the entire series. It was nominated for multiple Game of the Year awards, has exceeded 2 million copies sold, and has instilled newfound confidence in the psychological horror franchise. Silent Hill was finally back. Today, I want to look back at the 2012 PS Vita exclusive Book of Memories, the last official title before the franchise's recent revival, especially when you discount PT after being removed from digital storefronts. At the time of release, Silent Hill fans were pretty beaten up and were starving for a traditional horror experience. Book of Memories didn't offer that. It was a Diablo-esque action RPG on a handheld console that offered little in the realm of immersive frights or intriguing storytelling. Now that our wounds have healed, so to say, I want to see if this much maligned game was really as dreadful as we thought back in the day, or if there is something of worth hiding beneath the rubble. So come with me as we take a trip back to the town I see in my restless dreams, Silent Hill. But before we begin, consider reaching into that dark hole and pressing the like button. Stick your hand into that filthy commode for the subscribe button and brave the wailing siren and ring that notification bell to stay up to date on all of my gaming content. Okay, let's head deep into that fog and see what we uncover. Silent Hill Book of Memories was developed by American studio WayForward Technologies, best known for their Shantae series of games. WayForward is no stranger to working on licensed titles and franchises that they didn't create. In recent years, they've had their hand in a multitude of different properties, from Advance Wars to Clock Tower, River City Girls to Contra, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Goosebumps. As stated before, Book of Memories is largely a Diablo clone set in the Silent Hill universe. It was commissioned by Konami to be oriented around short multiplayer sessions on Sony's latest handheld console, the ill-fated Vita. WayForward had their work cut out for them, as not only were fans largely turned off from the franchise at this point, and this was a major departure for the series in terms of presentation and gameplay, but the Vita would also prove to be a dismal failure. The game begins with players creating their own character, which already sounds all kinds of wrong for a Silent Hill game. You can customize their appearance with a few limited options and choose their class, which switches out RPG staples of warriors and mages with classes centered around schoolyard cliques like prep, jock, goth, and nerd. Your class determines your starting stats, which include the familiar strength, dexterity, and intelligence, but otherwise has little bearing going forward. There are no special abilities tied to any of the classes like you'd expect in other RPGs. You also get to choose a charm such as a lucky clover or a heart pendant. These can provide extraordinary gameplay boosts, but the game doesn't outright explain what exactly they do. It's like choosing the starting gift in most From Software games. I personally recommend either the sack, which provides more experience points for each kill, or the compass, which displays key locations on your map from the very start. After character creation, you'll be greeted with one of the game's only plot-focused cutscenes. While studying in your dorm room, a mysterious postman knocks on your door and delivers an unmarked package from Silent Hill for your birthday. Although you don't know anyone living in Silent Hill, you take the package away and open it. Inside is a heavy book, the titular Book of Memories. At first it appears unremarkable, but after flipping through some pages, you notice that it contains handwritten accounts of some of your most intimate moments in your life, things that no one else would even know. Many of these memories bear deep scars, such as losing a love or being fired from your job, things that you wish you could change. Without as much of a thought, you erase the words that are written and change them to read a much more positive outcome, and then laugh at the prospect of changing your past before lying down for bed. When you awake, however, the nightmare begins. That's honestly about it for the plot. The player visits within their dreams monster-filled locations that loosely represent the people most affected by the book's changes. Within these haunted locales are televisions and letters that provide small insights into how the book has influenced things, and it's up to the player to decide to keep the changes or reverse course. This retelling of the Monkey's Paw story isn't all that original, and it's clumsy in how it delivers the narrative. For the most part, I really did not care at all about the characters because I never interact with them, and I was largely confused on what was really going on. Only after retrieving all of the pieces of paper and finding all of the TVs, which I should note don't include any visuals, only audio, did I begin to piece together what was happening, and even then, I still didn't really care. Making a choice on what you do with the book is also handled strangely. It's all determined by your karma, rather than actually choosing for multiple outcomes. While you journey through each world, you can pick up either white or red residue left behind by certain enemies, Picking up red steers you towards the evil or blood path, while white puddles pushes you in the good or light direction. Whichever side of the karmic scale you're on when you defeat the boss of an area helps make the final decision of that chapter. But that's not all. There are also hidden objectives like killing enemies certain kinds of ways or using only particular types of weapons that also factor into the choice that you make. Like I said, it's confusing and strange. Depending on what you choose, you'll be met with one of several endings when you finish the game, ranging from the heartfelt to the insane and even wacky. If you don't like the ending you get, you can easily change it, like the protagonist does in his own story, as all levels are easily replayable from the start menu. All it takes is a little time venturing back into the nightmares, and you'll be awarded with a whole new outcome for your virtual avatar. Book of Memories consists of 8 total environments consisting of 3 zones each, and a boss fight to cap it off. Each environment is loosely tied to a character in the protagonist's life, as already mentioned, and are themed after familiar Silent Hill settings such as rust-covered factories, lonely forests, rain-drenched cityscapes, and fleshy, bloody chapels. None of these environments offer anything unique other than a visual difference, however. Specific enemies aren't even tied to certain environments, and you won't encounter any distinctive hazards while you explore their halls either. Each zone you enter is randomly generated and has a primary objective of finding puzzle pieces that are used to unlock the exit doorway. In order to acquire a puzzle piece, you must complete a challenge that's presented in some rooms by means of these blue orbs. Most of these challenges are quite simple. Kill all the enemies or survive through the time limit, although there are some that may give you some trouble, like only killing certain enemies and so on. After gathering all the puzzle pieces, you can unlock the final door, but this may still be difficult unless you find a paper with a hint to the solution written on it. These puzzles are always randomized and a little cryptic, but once you understand them, they are a breeze to get through. Suppose you find different colored pawn pieces and the letter says that they marched from crimson to violet towards the rising sun. Then you want to arrange them from red to purple, from left to right. Another puzzle may have you find dolls of various sizes with a hint stating they grew stronger as they followed time. So you just have to place them from smallest to largest in a clockwise fashion. 1 or 2 of these kinds of puzzles would be fine, but man, do they get tedious as the game goes on. They aren't difficult whatsoever to figure out and mainly exist as busy work to keep you from flying through each level. Every zone also has a bonus objective handed out by the creature Volatile at the outset. These goals are usually more complicated than what you find elsewhere and involve finding certain hidden items, taking out supercharged mini-bosses, and more. Completing these tasks will reward you with some powerful items such as rare weapons or equipable artifacts, so although these are optional, they are always worth trying to achieve. Other notable areas within the zones are save rooms, which act as a checkpoint when you die or turn off the game. The store, where you can spend all of your hard-earned cash for new gear. Treasure rooms that contain a plentiful boon. And rooms that grant you a temporary buff for a particular item. There are also karma rooms that sometimes appear in zones. These are by far the most unique and have the player make a choice that will have a slight effect on their karma meter. The problem is, the objective of these rooms is never really clear. For example, the first karma room you enter has a little girl crying. If you touch her, she disappears before reappearing somewhere else in the room, and after a few touches, she vanishes for good. Many players may assume that this is what you're supposed to do, but chasing the girl will award you with bad karma for terrorizing the innocent child. Instead, if you want your karma to move towards the bright side, you're supposed to simply stand there and do nothing. I can understand what the developers were going for in these vague little trials, but they don't succeed in measuring your true karmic worth, and are honestly just boring and confusing. Combat isn't all that bad in Book of Memories, especially towards the late game when you have better weaponry. I mentioned before that you don't get any special abilities with your class selection, and thus almost everything is tied to what weapons you have equipped. Players can hold a weapon in either hand, although some larger weapons like the baseball bat require both. Everything that you find comes from other Silent Hill games. Early on, you'll acquire such Silent Hill staples as the lead pipe, the handgun, a 2x4 with a nail in it, or a kitchen knife. The real fun begins, though, when you get further into the game and start grabbing such weaponry as the flamethrower, the poisonous hyper spray, and the laser pistol. You'll even get your mitts on special weapons like Pyramid Head's giant cleaver, the Boogeyman's thunderous hammer, and a lightsaber. The game's best moments are undoubtedly when you have powerful gear and just rip through monsters with ease. Imagine dual-wielding lightsabers while killing the frightening bubblehead nurses, or carving through baddies with a knife larger than their entire bodies. There's a big focus on weapon durability, and you'll be expected to switch out your weapons frequently as they wear down or break completely after repeated use. Repair tools can be found to fix these up in a jiffy, so it's not a terrible mechanic. What makes it frustrating, though, is the limited inventory space you have to carry things. In the beginning, you don't even have space for extra weapons, only for what you can directly equip to your hands, and by the end of the game, you can only unlock up to 5 additional slots. This is a far cry from the weapon hordes that you can have in Diablo. Also, unlike Diablo, are unique attributes for your gear. Blizzard's acclaimed dungeon crawler is renowned for having randomized stats for all the weapons that you pick up, but in Book of Memories, a steel pipe will always just be a steel pipe. No +1 to strength to be found here. While Book of Memories is light on abilities, you can purchase power moves from the stores located in each zone, although these are all the same regardless of what class you choose. Many of these can be a lifesaver, such as the ability to push all nearby foes away from you, or siphon the health from a creature, or even change a monster's karma affiliation. To activate these after buying them, you simply hold down the R button and press the attack specific button. You also have to build up a power move charge by using normal attacks, with your current amount displayed as gems beneath your health bar. In addition to your power moves, you have a few limited spells that you can cast. You'll likely avoid utilizing these altogether though, as they are tied to your ever-important karma meter. As your karma rises or falls, you'll reach certain thresholds that enable you to cast a certain level of spell. For instance, at the 3rd threshold, you can use either a level 1, 2, or 3 category spell. Using a spell will drain your meter by that amount until it reaches neutral status. All of the light karma spells focus on healing your character or the party, and likewise all of the blood karma spells deal damage. Each spell is clumsily controlled using the Vita's rare touchpad, and typically call for you to use your fingers to guide a ball or trace a line on the screen. I rarely found these to be useful, and the touchpad utilization always felt gimmicky to me in this instance. In fact, the entire game relies on the touchpad feature far too much, so much so that it becomes a hindrance. Although the Vita has a lot of face buttons, Book of Memories skips over most of them in favor of forcing you to touch the screen to change weapons, activate your karma spells, flip through menus, purchase from the store, and other areas where traditional buttons would work just fine. On the Vita, it's a mild inconvenience, but if you're using the PSTV or other method to play it today, it just does not translate well. Using a controller, I frequently fumbled trying to select the right item from my inventory since I had to guide a cursor to just the right spot, rather than just hitting a button. The monster variety here is good. You have all the primary Silent Hill creatures like the nurses, the split-headed dogs, and the tortured straitjacket monsters. Later stages also feature mini-bosses like the infamous Pyramid Head, the Boogeyman, and the Butcher. All enemies have unique abilities and require a certain form of strategy. Air Screamers, for example, fly around the room and will knock you out with its wide wingspan if you're not careful, and Ghosts will temporarily disappear for a time, requiring you to be cautious or risk being grabbed from behind. The only real issue I have with the enemy roster is that it doesn't really make sense lore-wise for all of these creatures to exist here, as monsters traditionally are tailored for each protagonist. But I gave up trying to make Book of Memories canon long ago. One downside is that all bosses in the game are exclusive to Book of Memories, and while a rock monster that charges like a rhino or a towering treant that summons vines from the earth would work as formidable bosses in other games, their designs just don't work for a Silent Hill title. It doesn't help also that most of these fights are long, arduous affairs if you don't come equipped with the right weapons, making them unfun on top of unappealing. Being a dungeon crawler, Book of Memories has a multiplayer aspect to it, but you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone to play with in 2025. The online servers are all long discontinued and were probably vacant even shortly after the game's release. I don't imagine multiplayer having a big impact on the overall game either. Certainly playing with friends would make the game easier, and misery sure loves company, but the absence of unique loot hampers the multiplayer experience by quite a bit. Thus, expect a purely single-player game. Book of Memories does have a single DLC pack to purchase, which adds a decent amount of content to the game. Through it, you can gain new character creation models, like being able to play as Silent Hill 2's James Sunderland or Silent Hill 3's Heather Mason. 2 new enemies also populate levels, which include the murderous Grey Children from the original Silent Hill and Shattered Memories as Rawshock monsters. The Rawshocks are among the most unique villains in the entire game, as they initially behave as if they're a member of your party and will turn on you when you least expect it. They are also one of only 2 baddies that will chase you out of the rooms and follow you into the connecting hallways. Fans will find the most fun out of the DLC with the exclusive new weapons, such as the classic chainsaw, Pyramid Head's deadly spear, a CRT TV that you can chuck at enemies, and the Princess Heart Wand, which fires mighty beams that disintegrate foes. Perhaps the best aspect of the entire Silent Hill franchise is its collection of music. Although Book of Memories' soundtrack isn't on par with most other games in the series, it's still probably the best part of this particular game. Daniel Licht returns after having scored the music for Downpour and manages to inject a familiar blend of rock, industrial, and atmospheric sounds for each level. While it may seem a little out of place in any other Silent Hill game, it definitely fits this Silent Hill game just fine. There's also one song that features longtime series composer Akira Yamaoka on guitar, with frequent collaborator Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and voice actor Troy Baker on vocals, which should appease most fans. Finishing the game's 24 centered zones will likely take you around 20 hours, all said and done, and the game continues with hundreds more ever-changing zones to explore should you wish to. Personally, the first 24 are more than enough, as this dungeon crawler doesn't offer much in the way of fun or innovation. It's hard to believe anyone thought the Silent Hill franchise would make for a good casual dungeon crawling RPG, and I respect WayForward for at least making the old college try, even if they failed. Only the strictest Silent Hill fans should give Book of Memories a go, although they may find it to be too horrifying to complete, given how it massacres such a beloved franchise. For all others, it's a throwaway novelty that just isn't worth giving the time towards.